Huh? Ah. All right. So let's hit this thing off. Welcome, everyone. I'm super happy that so many people showed up. It really makes me kind of want to cry. But, we'll see how this goes. So who saw Bastian's talk yesterday? Bastian's Cinema 4D talk. Right, it was pretty cool, huh? So what I'm going to try and do today is like dive a little bit deeper in what you can do in using 3D for concept art. So the idea is that I will show like a bunch of images and like break down a couple of images, and then we'll do a live demo. And with every chapter, I will try to apply the technique I'm trying to show to that real demo. So yeah, just let's get started, I'd say. Yeah, if someone wants to heckle me, please go ahead. Yeah. Oh, thank you. That's not a heckle. That was pretty nice. Anyway, let's get started. So my name is Tukker. I am from the Netherlands, and I would consider myself as a freelance concept artist slash concept animator. And I also do a lot of illustration. And as you might be able to see from all these images, is that I really like sci-fi and I really like spaceships. That's from, you guys know this one? From Lego Spaceships. So as a kid, I played with Lego a lot, like every day, probably up until I was 16 or something. Yeah, don't laugh. And also, my dad kind of forced me to watch Star Wars. I don't know who put these images in my presentation, but let's just skip over it. And more recently, I've been really inspired by the works of Zaha Hadid and other modern architects like Calatrava and the likes. So today I would like to show you how I would approach kind of a working day. So these are the software that I use in my day-to-day work. I would say that I have a very specific workflow that allows me to like put out images fairly quickly. And I will try to show you how I would go and do that. So, all right, 3D modeling. This image, you see all these curvy shapes. I'm really a fan of those. This was an image made for Max Berman's 3D Kit Bash set, the Utopia one. And it's super easy actually to make these shapes. Like you can see here, I started with like a super little plane, and then I extruded it, and then you subdivide it so it has this wavy form. And I will show that momentarily in Photoshop. All right, here's like a little GIF. How would you say that? I don't even know. Like how I would approach making a building like this, and it's a very kind of intuitive, experimental workflow that I tend to use. Like sometimes I don't even sketch on paper. I just jump into Cinema 4D right away and start pushing and pulling shapes around. All right. This one as well has kind of the same wavy shapes. Yeah, I'm really fond of those. You see here, this looks super dirty, but because I am an illustrator-ish type of person, the 3D is never my final result. So I can really afford to make some mistakes in my modeling. So because you can paint over it anyway. All right, some progress, more weird stuff, more. Right. I have a lot of slides, so I probably need to skip through them very fast since we only have 40 minutes today, but that's all right. All right, this one is a little bit of a mining rig. And that one was actually made with a tool called the knife tool, which I will show. And it starts with a plane, as you can see here, and you just make a few cuts. And then if you kind of like inner extrude, some of you might know the term, then you can very quickly make those angles that you can see here. Right. And then this one is also, yeah, you can see it like the same shape language. I like ever since the last few months, I'm really fond of that. This is an image made for a board game I'm working on, and I'm having a lot of fun doing that. All right, cloners. This is actually one of my favorite tools in Cinema 4D, and Bastian showed this yesterday as well. Yeah, you start with like a tiny little ugly bit, and then you clone them all over the scene, and you can even like rotate it, do stupid stuff, and just iterate until you find something that looks remotely cool. Right, same as with this, like the middle structure right over there was just a super random shape there on the left. But if you clone it, it looks half decent, I would say. So, all right, with this one, I actually started with one building, actually the one I showed the GIF of. But here it's rotated around in a cloner. And here are some other iterations. So whenever I'm trying to come up with a concept, I just try a lot of things. Like put it in a cloner, add some weird effects, destroy half of it. Doesn't even matter. It's a very destructive way of working, but it's very rewarding. All right, with this image, actually this tower is all made of the same shape. Just like a super ugly shape, but then if you clone it in different ways, you can get a result like this. And you can also use the cloner for tire tracks, for example. If you want to make a tank, you just model one bit of the tire track and then clone it across a spline. And then you can even animate it that it drives around. All right, so let's jump into this little demo. But first, I would like to show a bit of an animation if I have it here. Oh, here. Because lately I've been very fond of animating my scenes, and Cinema 4D really, it's super easy to do in Cinema 4D. So this is like a super easy animation, but it kind of sells the concept. You can see what's happening and what the purpose of the building is just by letting it move. And in this case, I didn't use After Effects or anything. This is just straight from the Octane renderer. Since I don't have the Octane renderer on my laptop, I won't show that today, but I guess we'll be fine without it. All right, so let's try and make a cool winding building, and let's start with a plane. Do it right here. I forgot a mouse, so I have to do it with the trackpad, but that's perfectly fine, I think. Yeah. Whew. No, I'm fine. I'm good. Thank you. No, I'm good. All right. So here there's this little plane, and I can just extrude it by selecting a side and holding Command or Control if you're working on a Windows. And then if I just move it and do this again, move it a little bit, do it again, move it slightly backwards. I hope. Yeah. I think it's noticeable. All right. So now we have this begin shape, and if I just press Alt and then hold Subdivision Surface, it instantly becomes this very organic shape. All right, so let me collapse this. Oh, that's apparently not how it works on Mac. All right, so I'll just do this, current state to object. So now we have this object. And all right, if I go to cloner and drop this onto a cloner, you see that it's copied like a couple of times. Let me put the lines on so you can see what's happening. But this is super gross. We kind of don't want that. But if we use the radial cloner, then we can come up with pretty interesting shapes. So let me copy it, and let me copy one of these subdivision surfaces as well, and use the brush tool to kind of displace some of the polygons here. So we can make a very interesting-ish building. And you see, if I edit the source object, you can see that the clones also change. So I just have to like select my object, kind of alter it, and then the whole cloner thing alters as well. There's a bunch of other stuff you can do, like you can rotate it, you can rotate it the other way around. And let's say we're happy with this. I mean, I'm not, but that's all right for now. We only have 40 minutes. So if I use the brush tool again, I can now start customizing the building. So let's drag this a bit here. Let's make the plane a bit bigger so we have kind of a ground thing going on. All right. Let's see how we're at the time. Oh, it's only 10 minutes in. That's perfect. All right. So I'll just drag some polygons. And like probably, like who of you here is a 3D artist? Like full-on modeling 3D? Because I'm very sorry, like what Bastien said yesterday, it will probably make you puke. But if a 2D image is the end result, actually you can get away with that. Like all of these, like the topology is way off, of course, and it looks super weird. But I paint over it anyway in Photoshop, so you can hide all of the mistakes. All right, let's say this is nice and done. Now we can start adding some modifiers. If I just hold Shift at the twist tool, I can twist it around, for example, making it even more weird. Let's just copy this so we can have multiple buildings right here. Does someone have some water, by the way? Thank you. I shouldn't have had those ribs yesterday. Let me tell you. There was. Oh, thank you so much. Oh, Martin, it's a gesture of love. Much appreciated. All right, so Right, let me jump this brush tool again. And actually, I think 2 towers would be enough for now. And I won't go into rendering because, yeah, that takes up quite a while. That's like a whole other kind of thing. You should ask the guys who made the intro for this year's IAMC. They know everything about it. Yeah. Also with materials. All right, so let's say this is cool. All right. Current state to object, current state to object again. So we now have 2 towers. And what I can now do is, because this building doesn't really have any substance, right? This is just like kind of made out of ribbons. And normally you would extrude this, but there's actually a function called the cloth surface. And with that you can, yeah, kind of give your shapes a bit more like density, or like a bit more, I don't know how you would say that, but without losing control. So if I wanted to head back, and if I would be like, I want this material to be a bit thicker or anything, I can just jump back in that cloth surface and just make it way better. Like, that was me yesterday, by the way. Oof. Yeah. All right, so cool. So that's how you could make an object like that. And if we go to the more kind of the edgy modern architecture stuff, like the one with a lots of angles, I'll just make a plane again and put all the segments to 0, 0, 0, 0, and drag it over right here. And then I can use the knife tool to, yeah, kind of break up the surface a little bit. Like do it like this, do it like that, and let's do one here. All right, and if I now go to extrude inner, I can do this. And now we have kind of a nice fence type of shape, which you could then, of course, like you could subdivide it, making it look super odd. And you could put it in a cloner to make a crazy building. But that's basically what you can do using Cinema 4D and the cloner tool. So let's jump back into the next kind of chapter, which is actually my favorite tool in the entire world. It's called Displacement. So what I try to do is I try to add the effect I will be talking about to the title, if that wasn't obvious. But all right, so to explain this very shortly, I have a cube right here, but if I would drop that texture right onto it, like there's no UV mapping acquired, UV mapping, and if I then use that as a displacer, the geometry drastically changes based on the black and white values in the texture. So you can get like a crazy, almost an insanely detailed block, kind of a Borg cube, while the actual model is just this like 8 polygon cube. Or is it 6? Oh, it's 6. Shit. Anyway, all right. So if you look at this image, this is what it looked like without the displacers and without textures. And then, I mean, it's super simple. It's just a bunch of cubes and a bunch of weird spherical buildings. But then if I apply this little displacement map, it suddenly looks like this. And now it's almost ready to be painted over. And of course, there's some weird stuff going on and some weird like clashing materials. But you can paint over that anyway. It's no problem at all. All right, same goes for this image. A bunch of blocks with displacers. And then you paint over it and turn it into this image. Yeah, it's really nice because what I try to do 30% or something of my design process in 3D, and then I try to solve the rest in 2D, because then the process is very, I don't know, it keeps very loose. If I do too much in 3D, you tend to become like a slave of the model, so to say, and you. I don't know, never mind, lost my train of thought. Let's go on. All right, this one is even more weird. This is the actual 3D scene without displacers. You see this weird texture, there's a bunch of these chimneys going on, but if I add the displacers, boom. Sorry. that one was from Mark. All right, and then you just paint over it again, add some atmosphere, add some smoke, make it look like there's kind of a factory thing going on. But the displacers, they do a lot, especially in those giant cityscapes who are viewed from a bird's eye view. Same goes for this one. This one, I wasn't sure if I wanted to talk about this because you guys would probably be like, oh shit, I've never seen anything cheesier. But what I did is I took a satellite picture of Manhattan and I cloned it around like 8 or 10 times, and then used that as a displacement map. So you have this kind of mandala type of city going on, and it creates an insane amount of detail with like just 2 clicks. And this is what the model looked like. So I had some work to do in 2D, but you see there's already a lot of relief going on, also with the swampy area right here. Same goes to this one. I made this map in Photoshop. So yeah, that's what I was trying to, that's what I wanted to talk about. Like if you are a 2D artist, you can actually use those skills to apply it to a 3D environment and really get very detailed scenes with just a matter of clicks. Also because Cinema 4D is a very, I would say, a very easy software to use. Like you pick it up fairly quickly, and then you can use those 2D skills that you acquired over the last 1300 years, I don't know, and apply that to the 3D scene. All right, so let me show you just a little bit of that displacement thing while checking the time. How long did I have? I have about 20 minutes left. That's perfect. All right. So cool. If the displacement maps I just showed you were rendered in Octane, but for now I will just displace the actual polygons. But what needs to be done is that I need to add a lot of polygons. If you use a texture displacer, you can just, your model can be as simple as possible. It can be a flying turd, it doesn't really matter. But as long as you apply those displacement maps, it will have crazy detail. But if you want to displace the actual polygons, you need a lot of actual polygons, otherwise there would be nothing to displace. All right, so let me add a displacer here. And then let's grab a noise shader. This is all like procedural texturing in Cinema 4D. And like I can pick a different type of noise. Let's do this one. And then you can change the scale. And you can change you can even animate it, by the way. I'm not sure if I will be able to do that. But see, now it's animated. You just have to, you don't even have to keyframe it. Now you have like, you can use this to make like kind of like a sci-fi blob that's warping and doing weird stuff. All right, and then if I want to go very extreme, I could adjust the height and go super crazy. This is like unusable, but you know, you get the idea. All right, so that's about displacers. Next chapter, play poly effects. This is a tool I kind of started to learn when I did a course with Nick Hill, a motion graphics design course. Because Cinema 4D is a great tool if you are a motion graphics artist, but you can also try and use those motion graphic tools to create very experimental shapes for your 2D images. All right, so poly effects. Here, we have the cube again, and with the poly effects, you can change the behavior of every single polygon that's in your, in your shape. So here I just told it that there's kind of a sphere thing going on. Everything within that invisible sphere makes the polygons a bit smaller and rotates it around just a little bit. And if you do that with a lot of layers, you can get this super detailed cube in a matter of minutes, I don't know, seconds. So that's how I made this thing, for example, in combination with a very simple displacement map. This one as well. This could be like a, I don't know, Borg cube, pirate base, you name it. There's a little, I include a little GIF, like how I would proceed after I render the image. So let's just play this a couple of times, maybe 2. While I get a sip of water. All right. Yeah, at first I wanted to try and do everything with the French accent, but I thought I might offend a lot of people. But yeah, I mean, speaking of love, what can you do? All right. How do I? Okay, cool. All right, this one. This almost looks like Aurélien. I don't know if he's here. He asked me if these were fractals, but this is actually made within Cinema 4D. And what I did is I got this very complex shape, a lot of polygons going on, but I said to the model, like, every polygon should be just a little bit smaller than its regular size, and that's where you get all of these details that are going on. So here's some iterations of that same sphere. So the one on the left is without subdivision surface. Then that one is a bit more, I don't know, organic. And then I did the polygon thing, and then I did something weird that I forgot what it was. All right, you can also use the poly effects to animate your scenes. And this is actually one of my favorite tools. So I used this for the, there was like an IFCC competition, and I used this to create an animation of a kind of a robot city appearing, kind of an alien entity corrupting a city. So you start like this, and then it warps out, spreads out, boosh, and does weird stuff. All right, and I had an animation as well, but since it doesn't show here on Keynote, I need, oh, there it is. That was fairly easy. All right, full screen. And if I press play, you can see that it's arriving. And all I did is using a poly effects tool within a fall-off. I'll show that right now in Cinema 4D to kind of make the geometry appear in like a matter of seconds. All right, let's put this one down. Okay, and let's go to this tower and collapse this. All right. Select this cloner and go to MoGraph, Poly Effects, and then scoot it over right here. And let's say that every polygon needs to be 0. So it's 0% of the original polygon. So now the structure is basically gone. But if I put it on a fall off, like let's put it in a sphere, you can actually pick which part of the geometry you don't want to show. And this is great for making ruins, for example. Like if I would just put it right here, now it's an alien tower that's been, excuse my French, fucked up by someone else. But the cool thing is that you can also animate this. So if I just keyframe this and go to frame 90 and put it way up, keyframe it again, press play, zoosh, now the thing starts appearing. So yeah, that's actually a great tool for doing animations, like especially sci-fi animations. But it also gives you a great amount of control. Like you just have to drag this thing around to show how much of your structure is kind of messed up. And what you can also do is attach a randomizer to this. So if I press random, now all of the polygons that are affected by the poly effects kind of move around, and I can change a couple of the parameters. So now we have like a proper mess going on. And if I now press play, this is super weird. Like it's kind of Lego blocks falling into place and then doing some stupid stuff at the end. But you know what I mean. So yeah, all right. Let's go back into the keynote and jump into the next little thing. Octane Scatter. It just seems like I with every chapter I say, oh, this is my favorite tool, but this is also my favorite tool. So Octane Scatter, what Octane Scatter does, it's a plugin for Octane. You could also achieve it with the cloner in Cinema 4D. But what it does is you make a bunch of cubes or whatever, you make a bunch of buildings, and then you can kind of smash them on top of another object, like populating it like a giant city. And that is really, really nice and handy for if you want to create like city overview shots. So for example, I made this Egyptian city for the board game. And I started out with doing some regular buildings. And then I had some trees as well from Cinema 4D. Oh, sorry. That was my food from yesterday. All right. But you can then assign it to a specific area in your scene. And then copy it all over. So, and you can do it in the most random way possible. So you can say that some houses need to be bigger than other houses. Some houses need to be rotated. Actually, the limits are, the possibilities are limitless. That's what I wanted to say. And you can see that the palm trees and the buildings are all scattered among this town. And then after painting over it, adding a lot of atmosphere, doing some painty stuff, you end up with this thing, whatever you want to call it. Same goes for this one. It's like an Aztec city but there's also dragons. Okay, sure. And what I did is I went into Photoshop and drew the crudest city map you could ever draw. It's so ugly, it almost makes me puke again, but let's not remind myself of that. But you can then say the Octane Scatter tool only needs to be applied on the white shapes within that map. And then you get an example like this, like a result like this. And if I just head back into Photoshop, change the texture, you drastically change the layout of the city as well. All right, same goes for this thing, fantasy city, bunch of houses, and then paint over it and get to somewhat of a final result. All right. And the same goes for this. I already showed this tank before, but actually those buildings here, those little attached buildings, they are copied all over the tank using the Octane Scatter tool as well. All right, next chapter. X particles. This one's really nice. This is a plugin for Cinema 4D, and it allows you to, at least what I use it for, is to generate kind of structures. Like you press the play button and structures start appearing based on the information you put in. All right. So you can, for example, you can make a bunch of connections. Because what particles are essentially, there are a bunch of dots and they have a certain behavior. But you can then tell the system that every dot needs to be connected if they come within a certain distance of one another. And that's how you get these super weird modern architecture shapes. A bit of alien stuff. Again, this thing you see on the front of the tank. I use that kind of thing to populate the ship a bit more with a bunch of random iron stuff. Same here. Actually, with this one, now I have a much easier way of doing it. But in this one, all of the shapes were generated with particles. So what happened is that I had about 4 particles, and they slowly had kind of a turbulence attached to them. So they made like a wavy shape. And you can then turn it into geometry and paint over it to generate the final image. So this is what it looks in Octane. All right, so let me jump into another clip here. All right, so I made a bunch of tests to show the different ways that particles can behave to create structures. So you have these kind of organic forms, very tight edges, again, very tight edges. And you can just press stop or press play if you're pleased with how it looks like. So more wavy patterns and straight lines. Or are they? No, they have kind of a curve in it, but that's all right. So yeah, you can use X particles to create very interesting scenes, or you can use it to make your model a lot more detailed. All right, let's head back into this thing. Oh yeah, cool. Let's check the time. Because the amazing... Oh, by the way, after this one, please be seated, because Sava will be up next. And that's going to be pretty sick. Sorry? Scottish accent? Sava. Oh, something drops out of my pants. All right. That was the audio device. That can be interpreted in multiple ways, I think. All right. Oh, wait. Let me rewind this. So I made this kind of terraformer. I'm pretty sure some of you know what a terraformer is. It's a machine that makes a planet habitable. And I made a small concept animation to show how this thing gets smashed on a planet and then unfolds to start screwing up the landscape, so to say. And this is actually a super simple rotating animation, but those flames are made with particles as well. So the particles connected to geometry, and then you attach like a glowing material, to make it kind of glow more. And here with the smoke, it's super unrealistic, but if I were to show this to a client, they would understand what was going on. All right, so textures. Wait, maybe I can show a bit of the X particles thing as well, if I'm quick. Let me see. I have 10 minutes left. Yeah, that would be nice. Let's delete this. Okay, let's create a particle emitter. And actually, I'm going to hide those buildings. Or should I? No, I'm going to use them. That's going to be fun, I hope. And put the XP emitter on an object, and then drag the object into the emitter. So what's happening then is that the particles will start growing from the object that you put into it. So all right, let's put it into it. And then press play. See, those, can you even see that? Yeah, a bunch of green dots start appearing from the geometry. But if I would also go to X particles, go to modifier, go to motion, go to follow surface, and drag the object in it as well, you can see that the particles, not always, but it's supposed to just stay within the confines of that model. But I think I can just put this a bit higher, do this, and then probably something else happens. All right, so cool. And what I can now do is make the emitter actually draw a bunch of shapes. So I could use the XP trail, drag the oh, it's already there. Connections nearest by, I don't know, distance. I'm still learning this though. All right, max number within distance. So now you see that these super tight angles start appearing. So if I press play, now the building is starting to be kind of corrupted by, by some kind of alien entity, I don't know. And I could then turn this into a model if I wanted to. If I would put it into a sweep. So put this into it, put this into it. Okay, the other way around. All right, does it work? Yeah, okay, you can see it slows the machine down pretty heavily, but now it actually generates geometry, which then, if I would be happy with this, I could then just make this editable, and ooh, there's a bunch of stuff. And then connect this. All right, and now we have another, like an additional alien structure. All right, and again, the possibilities are endless with this type of stuff. Okay, let's jump into textures, and then I'm almost done. Yeah, that's pretty okay. All right, textures. Again, if you're a 2D artist, you don't have to try and learn all these like weird UV unwrapping stuff. You can just paint a texture in Photoshop, smash it on top of a building, you're done. Because again, you can paint over it anyway in Photoshop. Yeah, like if you were a motion graphics designer, this wouldn't really work. But you see, for this shape right here, this was the texture. Some of you might even recognize the mosaic filter in Photoshop, but it's all right. Just use whatever tools that are available to you to create something weird. All right, this Tower of Love, what's it called again? Eiffel Tower? Martin, tell me, come on. So, all right, for this was the 3D model. This is actually rendered in the Cinema 4D native renderer, and you can see there's a bunch of detail. And actually, this was the texture that was used for it. So just a bunch of buildings and then made tileable, so you don't get like weird irregularities going on. And just smashed on top of the texture, on top of the buildings. And then by like using a photo of the Eiffel Tower and like painting over it pretty heavily, you can create an entire scene. Right, same goes for this thing. This is what it looked like without the textures. Apply these ones, like a weird marble one. Like it's super dirty. Yeah, some of you guys will probably be shaking your heads, but that's fine by me. And yeah, smash it on top of the model, and it's ready to be painted over. All right, and the conclusion. As you might see here I applied all of the effects I just talked about to this little title, and it shows it looks like rubbish. You can't even read what it is. So what I wanted to say with this is, it's okay that you use every tool that's available to you, but like make sure to use it sparingly. Just think about what kind of project you're going to do. Will it be sci-fi? Will it be a city? And pick the tools that will be very useful for that. Because otherwise you'll end up with this piece of dirt right here. All right, so just a little walkthrough of an image. Actually, this geometry was made with the X particles that I just showed. So the rocks and those connections were made. Then I use a bit of regular modeling to create those towers, a bit of cloners to, kind of clone the buildings on top of one another. Use Octane Scatter to create a few more buildings and to create the rocks beneath. All right, do some more, like create a small ship using the wavy modeling type. All right, add some displacement maps and textures and some luminance lighting, and then start paint over it. So yeah, you can see I'm trying to hide all of the mistakes I made. It's pretty rough right here, right? So paint over it, and then it's done. All right, that was it. Are there any questions? Oh, merci bien, merci. Yeah, so any questions? Oh yeah, go ahead. Uh-huh.
Do you think that do you think it's possible to use all the features you've shown in order to create more grounded
Oh, of course.
I suppose you have to do like Gothic cathedral.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that would be very much possible. Like now I showed a very experimental approach, but you can use the same stuff, but with a little bit more control. Like think about what you're doing just a little bit more, and you can create everything.
Yeah, because when I was looking at that, I was thinking, oh, that's looking very cool, but that's also very chaotic
Yeah, yeah, it is.
design. So I just wanted to know if what degree of control you can have over that.
Uh-huh. Yeah, like in this image, for example, I try to be a little bit more careful with all the effects. So I used that modeling technique with the knife tool, and I used a bit of displacement, but just not too much. Like not make it too crazy. For example, the environment, like the ground floor, is made with a displacement texture. But this one was a little bit more like I took a little bit more time designing this. But if I would go totally crazy, you can make a very detailed scene like that in about an hour or two. But this one was modeled in an entire day. So I tried to be a little bit more conscious about the design decisions I needed to make. So it definitely depends on the project as well. All right, does that answer your question? Yeah, all right, cool. Any other ones? You can just shout, like, no? Nah. Do I like drawing? No, no. Actually, like when I first started out, I was in kind of commercial design school. They required you to make these like commercials, do a lot of code. I didn't like that at all. But I had a friend, and he showed me these super crazy abstract things he made in Cinema 4D. So at that point, I wasn't really drawing. I started doing the Cinema 4D thing at 19, and then at 22, I bought a Wacom. So yeah, actually I started out with 3D, and then I tried to add the more painting stuff. And more recently, I've been trying to do some sketches. Yeah. All right. Anything else? We have about 2 minutes left, so all right, Jort.
When's your book coming out?
My book. Oh gosh, that's interesting. I'm working with my writer friend to make kind of I mean, I only have a couple of images, but it will be kind of. Do you guys know Lonely Planet, the travel guide, with like the articles like I don't know, this city is cool, but watch out for that. Yeah, we're trying to make that, but with sci-fi planets. So with like super weird alien stuff. So that's what we're trying to come up with. But I have this board game thing going on, which is pretty busy as well. So I don't know. I hope I will be able to make it sometime. All right. Anything else? Like, do a party trick is not a legit question. Scottish accent? No, I will offend John Beeston there in the back. Where is he? Oh, there. I'm sorry, John. No. Yeah. Yeah. All right. All right, Gordon. All right, cool. So, I think that concludes the whole thing. So, merci bien, monsieur, mademoiselle. Merci. And also, one more thing. Thanks so much to Maxon for letting me speak here, and thank you again so much that you are here with like such a bunch of people, because it's really heartwarming, even after getting zero sleep and puking over the entire apartment. So, perfect. Thank you so much.